Katie, can you see the screen? The PowerPoint?
Yeah, looks good.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Just want to give everybody maybe a couple more minutes to sign on so that we can get as many on as we can before we start. So maybe just a couple more minutes and we'll get started. So thank you for sitting tight. See, we're getting a few more folks joining in, so don't want to make us all wait too long, but just trying to give folks a chance to sign in. Okay, well, I think we could probably go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. So today you have myself, James Boyle. I'm the Director of Planning, and we are here to talk about the Short Range Transit Plan. And we want to just run through some highlights with you. We also have James Drake here with us today. He is our principal planner, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to get my screen to move to the next slide and it's not doing it. So you just have to bear with me while I figure out what is going on here. There we go. I'm hitting the wrong button, I guess. So anyways, I'm James Boyle. I'm the Director of Planning. And James, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. My name is James Drake. I'm principal planner with Sacramento Regional Transit. My focus area is kind of bus route and schedule development.
And Sarah Poe, who is our planner, she works in the planning department. She is managing this project. However, she couldn't join us today. So James and I will take you through our presentation, and then we're hoping to leave plenty of room at the end for any questions you may have or just general comments you want to make. I will ask that if you have a question or you just want to make a general comment, that you please post them in the question and answer box you see on your screen there. It says Q&A. If you click on that, you should be able to type your question in there. And we will either respond to you in the meeting today verbally, but we also will be providing written responses to all your questions as well. So there'll be plenty of time for some interaction at the end, but we do have just a short presentation we want to walk through with you to kind of give you an update on the SRTP and where we are and sort of what's next. So we'll get started with that. And we've already done our introductions. And so today we're here to talk about our short range transit plan. We call it SACRT on the Move. And this is really a 5-year service plan for future plan services. And it's a required document that we have to do. Federal Transit Administration requires them, and we submit them to SACOG for receive and approval. So we presented a draft of our SRTP to the SACRT board on February 14th, and that opened up our public comment review period. So we have a 30-day comment review period. And so today is our first online public meeting, and we will be having another online public meeting. And I believe that's scheduled for March the 8th. And you should have got notification via email, the same way you were probably notified about this meeting. So before we actually get started on the SRTP, I wanted to update everyone quickly on the service changes that we are planning for April. And some of you may have seen this at the board presentation on the 14th, but we are implementing some minor service adjustments coming up in April. And this is really due in part to some of the ongoing staffing shortages we've been having at RT. And it's not only an RT thing, but this is really kind of industry wide for a lot of transit agencies are dealing with the shortages. And really what we want to do is cut down on the number of unplanned cancellations. I'm sure those of you who ride the system frequently have been seeing a lot of cancellation notices. So really what we're trying to do is get ahead of that and put a schedule out that's more reliable, so you know that your bus will be coming when it says it's coming and the trips are not going to just be canceled. So again, it's a minor reduction. we're considering these temporary for up to 12 months, maybe less. And we also are making sure that we provide information to our riders about alternate, alternatives for you to use in case either your trip was canceled, or in some cases, some of the commuter routes are canceled, and that you have other options as well. So I just wanted to remind everyone about that and just let you know that we know it's an inconvenience either way, and we're trying our best to accommodate everybody. And so we have gotten some comments and feedback already on the proposed changes. And just want to let you know that we are getting them. We're taking them all into account, and we're keeping up on like a day-to-day basis on the proposed changes for April. So moving on from that, we do want to kind of move into our presentation on the short range transit plan. And so what I want to do is kind of start you off a little bit on the document itself. This is a planning document. And so it is broken out into several chapters. And I don't know if any of you have really had the chance to download it yet from the website or even kind of go through it. But this here kind of gives you an idea of what we're looking at in our plan. So there's introduction and the vision. And then, we do an overview of the district and our transit system. And then we talk about our service planning and evaluations of the service planning. And then I think most of you are probably interested in, the operations plan. And I think, I don't know if a lot of you got to sit in on the last public meeting we had, but that was very specifically focused on the 5-year service plan. So that's what we did at our last public meeting. And there was a lot of interest in that. And so that is a whole chapter in our short range transit plan. And then we also include things such as the capital improvement planning process, strategic, and some of the longer range planning projects, marketing, and then towards the end, there's a conclusion. Now, in the appendices is where you'll find a lot of the back end documentation of the plan. So this is really where you get into a very detailed information, and you find a lot of information there on our strategic performance metrics, the SRTP forward changes and what happened there. But also you'll find information on the unmet transit needs findings that we participate in with SACOG. Smart Ride is a lot of interest to folks. So we have information on Smart Ride in our appendices. The network integration plan, you'll find that there as well. So you can see in the appendices, there's a lot of detailed information for you to look at, so you are familiar with what we're working on at SRTP in terms of planning and how that relates to or fits into the short range transit plan. So I want to cover some of the goals we have for our short range transit plan. And, we broke them down into 3 goals here. One is for planning, obviously, of our future services and operations. We want to be sure that we're putting in place a plan that we think is doable and something that we can move ahead with. But in terms of sort of what we're dealing with now and our current state, we also want to be very much aware of the issues that we've faced over the past 2 years with the COVID pandemic and the major impacts that has had on transit and transit ridership. And also we need to take into account some of the current labor shortages that we're experiencing. And as many of you probably experienced some of the cancellations and maybe some of the impacts of the April service changes. And we also want to make sure that coordination is a big part of our planning process for this particular project. So we've had a lot of meetings with many of our partners, a lot of the local jurisdictions, Folsom, Rancho Cordova, SACOG, Citrus Heights, Elk Grove, City of Sac. Meeting with our partners and our strategic agencies is really important in building this plan. But also, public engagement is really important to us. And so that's a huge building block in our plan as well. And just being able to be with you here today for this public outreach effort really helps us to refine our plan. We want to hear from you. And so we take all of your public comment very seriously. And it's a chance for us to just inform you of sort of what we're thinking, the direction we want to go. But also it's a chance for you to respond to us and tell us what you think, if you like something or if you don't like something. So we really encourage public feedback, and we really encourage your participation. So in terms of looking at the future service, and when we say future service, remember, this is a 5-year window, so it's really short term in terms of the overall planning process. So when we think about our 5-year service plan and the things that we put together and we presented at the last meeting, we took a lot of things into consideration for those projects and those things that we put forward. And we went back and we looked at our SRTP project when we completely redesigned our bus service in 2019. And we look at some of the goals and things that were set forward in that project. And a lot of things we talked about, and a lot of things we heard from the public during that time was, you know, we want to see more frequent bus service, or we want to see more weekend service. So in that project, we tried to get to a point where we tried to do the best we could with that. But one of the big outcomes of SRTP Forward was really building a core base network for us to be able to go back to and add frequency. And so I think that's what you're going to be seeing in this particular plan. Again, COVID-19 and the impacts of the pandemic have obviously had big impacts on planning and how we think about future services. But even through that, the city, the region has continued to grow. And so we've seen a lot of new development, a lot of expansion, a lot of people moving here. So transit is really going to be an important component of our region moving into the future. And we take into consideration always, you know, complaints that come through customer service or even just customer feedback. We log every comment, complaint, everything we get, we take that into consideration as well. And so when we were building our plan and we were building our 5-year service plan, you know, we go back to those comments and we look at what people are telling us. And so we try to build all of those into our planning effort. And then we actively participate in SACOG's unmet transit needs. We attend all those meetings and we take note of what you're saying in those meetings as well. And we also have to be very much aware of our budget and budget constraints. So this is a fiscally constrained project and we can't, you know, put everything in here, but we have to be aware of our budget and really what we can deliver on. So that's another part of our future service planning. We always are looking to, you know, build our ridership, rebuild ridership. The pandemic obviously has had major impacts on ridership. And so a big part of our plan and what we would like to do is rebuild our ridership and get our riders back and, you know, regain that trust again. And then we also need to be very much aware of equity and equity issues and, you know, making sure that the service that we're planning now and the service we're planning for the future is equitable and that we're taking into consideration low-income communities and communities of color. We always want to make sure that, you know, we're on top of that as well. And climate action is another big consideration for us in terms of planning our service. So, you know, the city, the county all have climate action plans. And so we try to work with them and coordinate with them as much as we can. And transit plays a huge role. So if we're talking about reducing greenhouse gas reductions or reducing vehicle miles traveled, a huge part of that is getting people on transit. So we play a very big role in that. And you as our riders also help us reach our climate goals. So we have provided some initial documentations, and this is an example of a brochure that our marketing team put together. And all of these brochures you should be able to find now on all of our buses, and I believe on our website as well. So this kind of gives you an overview of our short range transit plan. And then you can see the details here laid out in this document as well, the plans and things that we would like to move forward with. So I want to transition a little bit to some of the mid-range projects or long-range projects, and also kind of react to some of the things that we've already have heard from folks. And so one of the questions that we always get are people talk to us about service to the airport, what's going on with the airport. Many of you know that we launched our airport service last year or the year before. And so that service has been doing very well. But the longer term, obviously, is light rail to the airport. We get a lot of questions about light rail. And so what I can tell you is that, you know, we are continuously coordinating with the city and the county, the airport, Air Metro Park, and developers on this particular project. And coming up, we'll talk a little bit about the long range transit plan and that process and how this particular project fits into that. But in the short term or midterm, we do get questions about future bus service to the airport, possibly future extensions of Route 11, and then service changes that could be included in our 5-year plan that would have service to the airport. So the airport, again, is one of the questions we get quite frequently from folks about service there. And as many of you know, we've recently, Elk Grove has recently joined the district, and Folsom the year before that. So we now have transit in Elk Grove and transit in Folsom. So, we pay attention to our new riders, the folks who have been riding in those communities for quite a while, who are now part of SAC-RT. And so we do get a lot of questions from riders in Elk Grove about weekend service. And we have really tried to incorporate a lot of those service requests into our short range transit plan. And so in the longer term, we do get questions about like rail to Elk Grove. And so that is a project that we will carry over into our long range planning process. And we continue to work with developers and the communities on new developments in the city of Folsom and the city of Elk Grove. So our public outreach so far on our project, we are currently in our 30-day public review and comment period for the short range transit plan. And we presented this to our board on the 14th. And so we've published our draft plan. It's available on our website. And so we want to discuss the contents of the plan. And also we really want to collect customer and riders' comments and feedback through this 30-day period. And so what we plan to do is at the end of our comment period, we will collect all of the public comments and questions we get. We will analyze those, and we will begin to make changes, based upon what we're hearing, the direction we're going, and we will try to make sure that we accommodate all of your questions or your concerns, and we will also respond to you. So we'll let you know, we'll answer your questions in terms of questions or comments you may have. And so in the month of March, then we will finalize our plan, and then we will work towards taking it to our board for final adoption in April. And so far on the public comment period, we've received about 12 emails, phone calls, or hard copy letters from folks. And so some of the common themes that we're hearing so far on our public comments are, we do get a lot of questions on Smart Ride and microtransit, and what is the future of microtransit? So we're hearing that. We do get a lot of requests for new service, especially in areas where fixed route may be lacking. And then again, from Elk Grove, we get a lot of questions about weekend service in Elk Grove. So the project schedule, we are here in February. Actually, we're through February, March. We're in March now. So we completed a community meeting February 10th. We presented our draft to the board on the 14th. And so now we're sharing our plan for 30-day review. And then coming up this month in March, we're going to conduct our final comment period. And then in April is when we would like to take our final document to the board of directors for adoption. So you can see we've been very busy over the past couple of months, and we still have a lot of work ahead of us. So I wanted to quickly just touch on our long range transit plan efforts. This is something that we will get initiated and starting our update this year. So shortly after we're done working on our short range transit plan update, we will begin to initiate our long range transit plan update. And so the long range transit plan will cover a much longer time period. So we go from a 5-year SRTP to 25, 30-year LRTP. And some of the projects that we'll focus on and we'll look at in our LRTP update are things like bus rapid transit, bus services to new large developments to meet new transit needs. We will certainly look at adding more frequency and longer spans of service. And then on the light rail side, Obviously, we'll continue with our light rail modernization plans. We'll look at the Green Line extension to the airport, and then we'll take into consideration future light rail extensions, either to Elk Grove or maybe north into Citrus Heights and American River College. So there's a lot of things coming up this year that we'll be having a lot more public involvement, a lot more public engagement on future transit for our service area and what that will look like. So for today's meeting and for contact information, Sarah Poe, she is the project manager for this project. And you can always reach Sarah via her email address here on the screen, or you can call her. She's always available and willing to talk to you and take your questions and comments. So if you can't get your questions or comments in today, always know that you can reach out to Sarah, but you can also reach out to James and I too. We're always available and we're here to hear from you. So that is all I have today for our presentation. And I did want to open it up for some Q&A. And I don't know, I'm going to pull it up here and see if I can see what's going on here. So I do have a couple of questions in the Q&A. And so what I'll do is I'll just read them out loud, and James and I will try to answer them if we can. So the first question we have is from Rick Hodgkins. Thanks, Rick. And then he says, in order to accomplish everything in SRTP and in order not to cut service, is there a further way to bring everything in-house? Also, what about looking at the leases which RT has with regards to renting space? And I understand the RT still has to contract with some outside providers to provide paratransit services. Does that cost RT money as well? Okay, good question, Rick. We'll attempt to answer some of that. I don't know if I can answer it all immediately, but Rick, we're always looking to, do everything we can to reduce our cost, and focus as much as we can on our service and service expansion. So in terms of, I'm not quite sure what you mean about bringing everything in-house, but what I can say to that is, in terms of the planning and the planning work we do, this particular project, we're doing everything in-house. We have no consulting help for our SRTP update. So what you're seeing today is really work that we've done ourselves in the planning department with our marketing team. Our marketing team is very helpful and they do a lot of work in-house as well. So I can't say that in terms of our planning work, we do a lot of it in-house. And let's see if I'm missing anything. I'm to contract with some other providers. And so with paratransit, I'm sure most of you are familiar, we brought paratransit in-house last year, SRTP Go. And so all that service is now in-house. We do offer supplemental service. So if we can't meet the demand, then we have to outsource some of those trips to a private provider. So, but all of our paratransit services in-house as well. And James, I'm not sure if anything you want to add on that, or I hope I covered it, Rick.
Nothing to add over here, but I did see the next question.
You want to take that one, James?
Sure. This was a question from Glenn. Travel between Citrus Heights and Folsom is a very common activity. It's simple by car, just use Greenback Lane. However, achieving that with SRT is not as easy. On weekends, it's a roundabout way using Route 21, then Gold Line with no smart ride. Some of us live in Citrus Heights and work or have appointments in Folsom and vice versa. There's also fun and recreation from hiking trails to restaurants and farmers markets. These two cities have growing populations and new housing communities being built. As part of SRTP, what do you think about researching and including direct service between them? Good question. A couple answers. I think first would have to do with Route 1, and the second would have to do with Smart Ride. Regarding Route 1, we actually have an item in the plan to extend Route 1 the plan says to Main Avenue in Orangevale. We've kind of thought about just extending it all the way across the river to Folsom, but as a little background, or if you live in the area, you probably know Route 1. It goes on Auburn Boulevard and Greenback Lane. It's one of our busiest routes every 15 minutes between Sunrise Mall and Watt I-80 light rail. Now, it wasn't that long ago that we had fixed route bus service east of Sunrise on Greenback and on Madison going out to almost to Folsom, to Main Avenue in Orangevale, where there was a connection to the Folsom Stage Line bus there. Ridership on that route was pretty low, probably no more than 100 a day, which was pretty low for fixed route for SAC-RT. And with Smart Ride out there in 2019, we discontinued that route. But we do have in our plans, under kind of a more ambitious funding scenario, if we were to get, like a local sales tax increase or something, then I think it would make sense to not only bring back fixed route service out there, but do it as more of a straight shot, straight out Greenback from Sunrise Mall all the way out to Folsom across the river, just to Main Avenue to make the connection with the Route 10 and Folsom. We costed that at about $1.2 million a year. So it's not a small item. That's kind of why we're not doing fixed route out there today. It's very expensive, and that's just for 30-minute frequency. Folks would probably, the Route 1 runs every 15 minutes. I don't know that there's the demand out there east of Sunrise right now to justify 15 minutes. But at 30 minutes, it'd be about a $1.2 million a year item. The other question, though, regards to or relates to Smart Ride. And I think, the point that's made there, or sort of implied, is that if Smart Ride ran on weekends, that would also be another way to get from Citrus Heights over to Folsom, instead of having to take Route 21 all the way down Sunrise to the Gold Line, which makes sense. There is not anything in the plan right now to add weekend service to Smart Ride. It is something we've talked about, however. So I think that's a very important comment to get from the public as something that maybe is missing or should be included in this plan or prioritized. One thing I will say about Smart Ride, I have to qualify that and say Smart Ride is like entirely grant funded, not just the capital. The capital is funded by SAC-RT. We provide the buses, but the operations are funded with one-time grant money, and it's funded through 2023. So right now there isn't a guaranteed secured source of funding to continue Smart Ride. It was rolled out as an experiment, and it's been a really well-received experiment. But like I mentioned earlier, with SAC-RT, I don't think it's any secret to anyone who's been following SAC-RT. We've been hoping and had several pushes to get an expansion to local sales tax, and making permanent the Smart Ride program is one of those things that bigger sales tax would help do. But as of right now, no, there is not guaranteed funding to continue Smart Ride. So we've kind of been holding off on plans to increase the budget for it. But I don't think that means that a comment like this doesn't belong in the SRTP. I think it's very well made. It points out a very clear problem right now and gap in the network and a potential solution.
Oops. Thanks, James. I see we have Smart has a question as well. And Smart's question, Smart hears a lot about the lack of bus service in unincorporated county and other low density areas. Students and families can't take advantage of free fares, and there is no school district bus service. What role will public transit play in expanding service to more families and students? So that's a great question, comment, Smart. And I think it kind of plays back a little bit to what James was just talking about in his last response, in terms of, the lack of public bus service and some of the more incorporated areas of the county and lower density areas, and the cost of providing that service. And so one of the things that we've talked about and we've looked at is how do we expand our service and how do we, reach those parts of the county that, may not be as dense as say, downtown Sacramento. And I think a big piece of that is obviously more funding. So, when we talk about any kind of future ballot measures or anything of that effect, it's not about just preserving smart ride and light rail extensions. It's also about offering more bus service. And so that bus service could possibly be expansion of coverage into areas of the unincorporated county where we know that we have a lack of service. And we know that we have students who live out in those areas who don't have access to the RT system that we wish we could get them service. And so I think part of the bigger community discussion as we move forward from the SRTP and start talking about the long range transit plan is, how are we going to fund all these things? And what's the priority of the community? So, we would love to, and we are a part of that conversation. And, future funding is going to be really important to making sure that we provide transit to as many people as possible. Not only increasing service in the more dense areas, but also, offering some more fixed route service to areas of the unincorporated county.
Yeah,
Do you want to add anything on that?
looks like we do have a couple other questions coming in, so I don't want to ball hog, but I would add on to that though and ask about specifics. I might even share screen here. Let me see if this works. Screen too.
I'll stop sharing. You can share.
Think that should, yeah. Okay, so this is kind of today's network and kind of a heat map of our ridership. And I'm going to overlay here where the unincorporated county is. So these shaded areas are incorporated cities. The unshaded areas, this is unincorporated county. And so in a nutshell, I want to pose the question of where specifically in the unincorporated county. I mean, just kind of in the northeast area, we've always had pretty minimal north-south coverage east of Watt. That's always been a thing. This is an area where there's arguably a market for fixed route service. Kind of east of Manzanita, kind of the San Juan area. Our coverage out there is also pretty minimal with fixed route. I mean, Smart Ride does cover most of this whole area, so that's some service. But while we go ahead and field other questions, I'd like to go ahead and pose to, I think this question came in from Smart, but specifically certain corridors where it can be used. I mean, there's no shortage of them. And I mean, we're just looking at the northeast area here. The southeast part of the county also, has a lot of unserved areas. The part that comes to my mind as a planner is kind of east of 99, south of Florin. We've never really had much fixed route service out here. Again, we do now have Smart Ride out there. We're trying to attract and build ridership and customers out there. One related issue we often have in the unincorporated county in particular, where we don't have service, is that we oftentimes lack safe streets and a way to get to the bus stop, which can be kind of a chicken and the egg problem. The county and the various cities will do streetscape projects over the years. A lot of times it's easy to overlook the need to put in bus stops when there's not already bus service out there. But if we were to fund a bus route out in one of these areas and there, wasn't existing sidewalks, safe crossings, pads, places for people to wait, we wouldn't be able to we could have a bus run out there, but it wouldn't be able to safely pick anyone up or do so in a way that's ADA compliant. So maybe we should jump to the next question, but I'd love to get a little follow-up on specific corridors that have a need for more service.
Yeah, I think that's good, James. And so smart. I think if you want to email us and then maybe specifically list some of the corridors and things you're talking about, that would be really great. So we do have some other questions, James. Let's see. Smart. Rick is going to talk supplemental service. Rick, I will get you a more detailed explanation on that cost and bringing security in-house to save RT money. Those are good questions. And I want to be sure that I get you an answer that's correct. So we'll respond in written response. Glenn has a question. Definitely for the one all the way to historic Folsom. Okay, great. I'm still dreaming out loud. Okay.
So are we.
Comment, Glenn. Okay, let's see. Smart talks about 5 benefit categories: highly quality and adequate transit. Like to see the SRTP speak to how the plan elements and proposals support each of those benefit categories: connectivity, affordability, health, safety, climate, and equity. Oh, thank you, Glenda. Appreciate the comment and feedback, and we will address your comments here, and we will certainly look into our document and see how maybe we could do a better job of responding to or trying to incorporate your benefit categories into our planning document. So thanks for that, Glenda. I don't see any other questions coming in. If anyone else has any other questions, feel free to type them. And I'll give a couple more minutes. Okay, I got one from Glenda. Okay. There's a chat box there. Okay. All right. I don't see any other questions coming in. Anyone has a question, feel free to type it here. If you, again, you can always email Sarah and she will respond to you, and we'll take your comments and questions into consideration as a part of our plan development. And as always, I want to encourage you to check our website, see what's going on with RT and planning and service. And if you have any questions or any concerns about the April service changes, feel free to send those as well. And James put Sarah's email address there. Thank you, James. In the chat box, everyone can see her address is SPOE, P-O-E, at sacrt.com. And I still don't see any more questions coming in. And so I think we're going to probably end a little early. So you'll get 15 minutes back of your time if you were planning on till 3:30. So we appreciate
James,
it. Yeah.
I think our next live session is it Tuesday the 8th.
Yes, it's Tuesday,
5:30.
March 8th, and it's at 5:30, I believe.
Also by Zoom. So if
By Zoom.
you think of any questions and you prefer the live format over email, please do join in.
Yep. So you'll have another opportunity, and please, tell your friends or anyone that you know may be interested in RT and transit. If they want to learn more about the short range planning process, to join that call. So we appreciate your time and calling in today, and we appreciate your questions and your comments, and we love hearing from you. And we just want to do everything we can to make sure that, we're doing the best we can for you. So thanks for your time. James, any last comments? Okay.
Thanks everyone for joining in.
Have a great day, everybody. Bye.
Hey, James, can you end the recording?
Oh, here we go.